Broadcast of a Lone Star community radio program, recorded and broadcasted live on irlonestar.com, Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and facebook.com/irlonestar. For more information on this show, please visit our show page at irlonestar.com/shows. To sponsor or donate to this program, visit our donate page at irlonestar.com/donate, or email us at lscrstudios@gmail.com, or give us a call at 936-666-1084. Lone Star Community Radio production and broadcast is possible by folks like you. So sponsor and donate today.
You're listening to Lone Star Community.
Welcome to the Legal Connection with Tony Lynn Collins and Cheryl Ellsworth Jahani. Tony and I are here every Tuesday from 12 to 1 p.m. You can watch us live on Facebook. You can listen to us on 104.5 and 106.1 Conroe's FM. And also, this will be available for downloading tomorrow on Google Play and iTunes, and you can listen to the podcast. We are here every Tuesday to talk about legal issues, local issues, things that our listeners are interested in, and we're very excited today to have Scott Goleman. Mr. Goleman, let me just give you a brief intro. He's here live in the studio, and we're very glad to have him, but he has been a Texas attorney for over 30 years.
32 years.
32 years. And he, right now, is in the middle of a runoff race for the Chief Justice of, is it the 9th District Court of Appeals?
That's correct.
Okay.
And he is going to win. So we're going to need pictures with you later.
Tony
remember
says
us
that
when
we need
when
pictures.
we appeal. Okay.
Yeah. So he'll remember us. We can text him to you. Remember this? Anyway, and when does the runoff start? Is it starting today?
No, the runoff started actually last week, Monday.
Okay.
So it goes today through Friday, July 10th.
Okay.
This week is 7 in the morning till 7 at night. Cuts off 7 p.m. this Friday. And then the last time to vote, the very last time to vote, is next Tuesday, July 14th. And I believe that's from 7 to 7 also.
But right now, we can just go in and vote before 7 p.m. We go to the courthouse here in Montgomery County.
You've got 8 early voting locations in Montgomery County. It's not really the courthouse. It's where the criminal courtrooms, the DA's office is.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, it's around the corner.
Behind the courthouse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, instead of...
Behind the annex.
What is that street name?
Phillips?
Well, it's Phillips.
Okay.
It's 105, but
Okay.
it's the westbound side of 105.
Right. And it's when you're going out, right?
Going toward I-45.
Yes, going out
Right.
because we passed it.
Westbound.
Okay, all
So
right.
that's one of the early voting locations. The library and community center down in the Woodlands next to Cynthia Woods Mitchell Pavilion is probably the biggest early voting location. And then you've got the community center in Willis, the community center in Montgomery. There's 2 locations in Magnolia, the Friendship Center in Magnolia. And then on 1488, before you get to Magnolia, there's the Magnolia Independent School District building. It's behind Rustic Furniture off of 1488.
Oh, okay.
Oh, way down there. Okay.
Yeah, and then you've got New Caney, Bull Solace Park. And the last location is a nature trail area off of Riley Fuzzle Road right next to 99.
Okay, wow. That's way far out.
Yeah.
That
I didn't know that
is.
was still Montgomery County,
That's
is
all
it?
the way
It's
down
right
the
on
end.
the edge.
Yeah,
It's right
but
on the
this isn't
southern
just
edge.
Montgomery County, though, but the 9th District parameters.
Oh,
is
it
that,
covers 10 counties.
That's what I figured. Okay.
So basically, the easiest way to describe it, if you leave Montgomery County and you head east, southeast, you go through Cleveland, Dayton, Liberty. If you
Right.
continued on to Port Arthur. So it picks up Liberty County, then you get Jefferson County, then Orange, Jasper, Hardin, Newton, The farthest northern county is Tyler County, which is Woodville.
I did not know that was in Montgomery, the 9th District. Wow.
Yeah, and that's the farthest northern county. And then if you come back southwest from Tyler County, you come through Polk County, San Jacinto County, back to Montgomery.
All right. Well, incredible. That's a pretty big jurisdiction there. So tell our listeners, I want to start with some of these questions, but I want you to just take a minute and tell us where you're from. Where did you go to school when you were a little kid,
Okay.
Where are you from?
Well, I actually was born in Houston, Texas.
What hospital?
Herman Hospital.
Okay,
Right,
just checking.
right next to the zoo.
Okay, well,
It's
there may be something there.
Changed tremendously since then. But I'd say, and I actually lived in Beaumont. That's where this court sits, is in
Right.
Beaumont, Texas. I actually lived in Beaumont twice as a child. The last time after I graduated from 7th grade, George C. Marshall Junior High, which is Marshall Middle School now in Beaumont. And then we moved to Columbus, Texas, which is out I-10.
How many years from 7th grade to 10th grade, or how long were you in Columbus during that period?
Moved the summer after 7th grade to Columbus and graduated high school in '79 from Columbus High School.
Okay.
Which is out I-10 right past Katy, Sealy.
Now, Columbus
Right.
isn't in the 9th District.
Oh, no.
Okay, I didn't think it was.
That's just where I grew up when graduated from
Because those
high
are
school.
formative years. Those are really important years.
Right.
in
Well,
someone's life.
and that's where living in Columbus is when I got into farming and ranching.
Oh, okay.
So I've got a farming and ranching background, which is why I ended up going to Tarleton State University in Stephenville. Tarleton State is part of Texas A&M. Matter of fact, Tarleton State University and Prairie View A&M are the only two schools in the A&M system that didn't have to do name changes. It's not.
Oh, is that right?
It's not
I should know.
Texas.
My entire family are Aggies.
Yeah,
Every
it's
one
not
of
Texas
them.
A&M at Kingsland or Eastland or whatever. It's we've kept our identity. And I went there, graduated in '83 with my undergraduate in agricultural education. I stayed and got my master's there. I split it up equally between education, animal science, and ag economics or agricultural economics. And then went to law school at the University of Houston Law Center and graduated December of '87.
So you went directly to law school.
Yeah, right after I
Okay.
finished my master's. So, and then took the February '88 bar, was licensed, in July of '88, and I've been practicing attorney based out of here in Conroe for 32 years now.
Now, that's pretty scary.
for
Right after you
you.
graduate from law school, what was your next step? Did you get hired by a big firm like everybody wants to, or that's the critical juncture in practicing? What was your next step?
Well, it's a really weird next step.
Everybody's is weird.
I was clerking for a law firm in Houston, and Tom Moore was the attorney's name, and he had a daughter, Tricia, and she was dating a man named Brantley Minor. And Brantley forced me into a blind date with his sister, Doris, and Doris lived in River Plantation with her parents. And
That's out Fort Bend.
No, it's
here.
right
Oh, here.
This,
Yeah,
this river.
just
All
south,
right. Plantation.
right next to the San Jacinto River.
Okay, wow.
And so love at first sight.
Yeah.
And moved up here and finished law school, took the bar exam, and I started interviewing with firms here in Conroe.
Okay, so you were actually started work here in Conroe.
I
then.
started work.
What a great place to start work, though.
Yeah.
I loved when I was
Back
first practicing in
then. Wouldn't
Harris.
that be neat?
It was just like it is now. It was the big city, and then you come out to Conroe and you can actually park right by the courthouse
I know.
and go right to the clerk's office. It was so wonderful. What a wonderful change. So you got the good end of the stick coming straight up here.
Started working for Reuben Hope and Associates.
Oh, I love Reuben Hope.
Yeah, Reuben was a great trial attorney and ended up going on to being on the Conroe Independent School Board.
He helped me so much in so many. When I was in a dilemma, I didn't even know him. I just kind of caught him in the courthouse. I'm like, I have a question for you. And he brought me to his office and he helped me win this one case.
How neat.
Yeah.
Wonderful guy.
And then he
So
became
God
our
got
state.
a good mentor, too.
Yeah, I got our state. He was our state legislature for a while, and So I was with that firm for a number of years, working with Reuben, doing civil litigation. And then I went to work for Michael Mays, who became the judge of the 410th
Love
District
Michael
Court.
Mays. A great mediator now, too.
Well,
He's wonderful.
I've told everybody I got trained by the two greatest trial attorneys that
Yes,
Montgomery
I actually
County's
know them,
ever
too.
had.
That's unusual. And yeah, what a
great.
great background. Okay.
So worked with Mike Mays till he took the bench in January of '97, and he had another attorney with him, Mark Haas. And when Mike took the bench, Mark and I formed Haas and Goleman, and started basically January '97. We dissolved our partnership December 31st of 2011, and then I started with Reuben's firm that had gone from Reuben Hope and Associates to Hope and Causey. So I've been with Hope and Causey since 2012 to the present.
Okay. So you have a really good, solid background with the judicial system and with practicing law here in Montgomery County. And I'm sure you've had a lot of exposure to the Ninth Court of Appeals, right?
Handled appeals in the Ninth Court of Appeals. I can't tell you how many, but there's been quite a few.
And so one last question. I know we're trying to keep on script here with the questions, but when you're elected, I know you're going to be elected. Are you going to move back to Beaumont, or how does that work?
Well, no, I'll be in Beaumont.
Okay.
The good thing about the Beaumont we call it Beaumont Court of Appeals.
Okay.
It's 9th District. There's 4 justices, and Steve McKeithen is our current Chief Justice. This December will be 3 terms, 18 years, and he's retiring. Steve's got an apartment in Beaumont, so he drives over Monday morning and then comes back toward the end of the week. Charles Krager is also from Conroe.
Okay.
And he has a garage apartment. He does the same thing.
Okay, so they commute.
Yeah. And the weird thing is that Charles and I'd been with Reuben for a year and a half when John Causey and Charles Krager came on board December of '89, and we practiced together. And John Causey, Charles Krager, and I have been friends since December of '89.
That's
Okay.
great.
So-
That's kind of scary, though. Y'all know each other. Is there
Yeah.
like some kind of collusion we have
No,
to
it
worry
won't
about or
happen,
anything?
Tony. It won't happen. I knew you were going to say that.
I know,
was
but
about-
it's close. It's
Well,
scary.
I know all 4 of the justices over there.
But so far, everybody you've named has been on very good people, great character, the best mentors ever. So far, so good.
And the weird thing is my longest trial was 6 weeks in federal court in Houston.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was against Steve McKeithen when he
Oh,
was the
no.
Montgomery County
He was a
attorney.
judge.
Oh, my goodness.
Lee Rosenthal,
Okay.
extremely brilliant judge.
Yes. Oh, I got a summary judgment on submission from him, like when I first started practicing. So he's been my hero ever since. It's like, I can't believe I got this. So yes.
So,
but 6 weeks.
yeah, I think that was the last.
What was that case?
It was a wrongful death case involving Montgomery County.
Okay.
And Steve and I have been close friends
Whose
ever
side were you on?
since.
Who'd you represent?
I represented the family of the
Okay.
deceased person.
What was the outcome?
Justice was done.
Okay.
The jury made the right decision.
I was in
Okay,
I was in a case
good.
against Harris County once, and we beat Harris County, and then it got overturned on a motion notwithstanding the verdict, and we were in the Fifth Circuit. But I've been there too. It's
Yeah.
difficult, and they do last a long time, weeks and weeks.
And
All
then, Leanne Johnson and we were on Governor Perry's short list.
Oh, really?
She and I were the last 2 to replace Justice Gauntney when he stepped down a year early.
Really?
And so Governor Perry picked Leanne Johnson, and my wife and I she had to immediately file for re-election. So Doris and I got on her bandwagon and campaigned for her.
Okay.
And I've known Hollis
You didn't want to
Horton
run against her?
No.
But you're running now.
Let me say this real quick. When I started July of '88, the Beaumont Court of Appeals was the most liberal court of appeals in the state of Texas.
Really?
Really. And in the last, I'm going to say 20 years, McKeithen's been there 18. It is probably the most conservative court of appeals in the state of Texas.
Which one's the
Really?
most liberal now?
Probably
Harris?
Corpus or San
Really?
Antonio.
Really? That does make
Yes.
sense. I can see San Antonio. Okay, I was thinking maybe Dallas, but whatever. All right.
Okay, well, so Scott Goleman, tell our listeners what you're running for.
Well, I'm running for Chief Justice of the 9th District Court of Appeals, and I'd very much appreciate your vote, your support. and you spreading the word to your friends and colleagues, anybody on Facebook, email, Twitter, text messages, anything to spread the word to get people out to vote for me for Chief Justice, I'd greatly appreciate.
Mm-hmm. And you can vote early now. And then also there are elections on Tuesday, and we've already talked about that. We'll talk about it a little bit more.
I can ask real quick about the voting, though. You said the last day to vote
But if
is
we
the
talk
10th.
about the details right at the end, I think it'll
All right.
make more sense.
Okay, fine. But there's a break. I thought you could vote on Saturday.
No, not
No?
this time.
All right.
Okay. Tell our listeners or our viewers what does a justice do?
Well, most people have no concept what a court of appeals does.
Right.
Because we don't do trials.
Yeah.
What happens is there's been a trial either in county court at law or in district court, and a judgment's entered by the judge. And one party likes the judgment, the other party doesn't like the judgment. And so either, the party that is unhappy can appeal to the intermediary court, which in this case is the Ninth District Court of Appeals in Beaumont. So it covers all criminal and civil cases. So any person that is convicted of a crime can appeal, and that appeal is free to them. They've got to go out and hire a defense attorney to handle the appeal, but the clerk's record, the court reporter's record, going to the Court of Appeals is free for them. Civil litigants typically have to pay, and it's basically two records. The clerk's record are all the documents that the parties want the Court of Appeals to consider, and then the court reporter has all the typed up testimony, and it can be also from hearings, pre-trial, the pre-trial matters before the jury's picked, and then all the testimony during trial. And that makes up the court reporter's record, and those two records, which can be voluminous, are sent to the Court of Appeals.
They sure can, can't they, Tony?
Right. And if you don't have something in that record that you should have had that will help you win your case, then you are like really upset. I mean, your client is too. So I always ask for the whole record, and the court reporters love it because they pay a lot of money for it.
Yeah. Okay, so these voluminous, did I say that right?
Yeah, voluminous,
records go to the Court of Appeals. So now I've got a case on appeal, and what do you do?
Well, and people are sort of misconstrued. They got 4 judges. The judges don't get to pick and choose what cases they want to hear. And there's going to be one judge that is the author of the opinion, if there's a written opinion, and they don't get to pick who gets to be the author. It's sort of taken away from them, and it's a good procedure. There's basically 4 different groups. You've got 3 judges in Group A, for instance, McKeithen, Krager, and Horton in Group A. Then it's going to be McKeithen, Krager, and Johnson in Group B, and so on, where all 4 judges are in 3 of the 4 groups. And all that's handled by the clerk of the Court of Appeals. Whatever group is up next, that next
Is it on a
appeal
rotation?
is on a rotation
Okay.
basis.
So we can't get to the clerk somehow?
No.
Okay, just checking.
And the same thing on the opinions. If that case is assigned to Group A, and that's McKeithen, Krager, and Horton, it's on a rotation system of the next judge that's up that'll author the opinion. So the only way that's going to change is if McKeithen was going to author the opinion, and Krager and Horton don't agree with him, and McKeithen becomes the minority, the dissenting opinion. So then either Krager or Horton would author the opinion.
Okay.
But it's
okay.
all set up where nobody gets to pick and choose. Everybody covers every type of case that comes before the court.
Right.
And they have to consider every case. I mean, it's not, the Court of Appeals don't get to say, we'll consider this appeal, but not this. They have to hear every one of them.
How many cases are coming through each year, though? That's
About
quite a bit of load.
500. And so
That's
that
a
means
lot.
that
Much
means
lower
that
than I
each
thought.
justice
Is that more than you thought?
I thought that's much less than I thought in this large of an area.
Each justice basically authors about 125 opinions.
Okay.
And the good thing about the Beaumont Court of Appeals is they don't have a backlog.
Okay.
So
That's
they're
great.
turning out the cases basically in the same number as new appeals are being filed.
Is there a cap, though? Because I know that a few cases that I've filed with the Ninth have ended up in different courts. So how does that occur?
The Texas Supreme Court decides that.
Okay.
It's an equalization system.
Okay.
So, if there is a backlog, then the Texas Supreme Court can notify the clerk that X number of cases need to be transferred
Okay.
to
Whoever, right.
We got 14 Court of Appeals
Right.
across
And
the
they've
state
been,
of
I've
Texas.
had them go to all different ones.
I've had appeals that, were going to be in Harris County or in Beaumont that have ended up in Texarkana,
Yeah.
Eastland, El Paso.
And you're always asked, why did it get, I
That's
don't
right.
know.
That's right. And the justices don't know that
being
those
transferred.
cases are being transferred, because
Okay.
it's when they first come in, Supreme Court notifies the clerk where they need to ship how many opinions. So
This clerk is really busy.
The next case that's supposed to be shipped out is shipped out, and the four justices don't even know about it.
Okay, and I'm sure you're going to tell us in a minute, but how are you involved with this conglomerate of work when all the justices are doing opinions and in groups?
You mean as far as being the Chief
Yeah.
Justice? Well,
You just sit back and
it's
give me my
not-
food.
It's not that big a deal.
Okay.
Matter of fact, the difference between the Chief Justice salary and the other three justices' salary is about $2,500.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And it really and truthfully, the administrative duties are mainly during the legislative session on the budget.
Okay.
And it's not like, as the Chief Justice, you go to Austin and, argue and beg and all that. There's 80 justices in the 14 Court of Appeals across the state of Texas.
Okay.
And there's a board of judges for the Chief Justices. And then there's a representative for the Chief Justices
Okay.
that presents all that to, the legislative session.
How'd you know all that?
Because I've done my homework over
Okay.
in Beaumont.
Okay.
I've talked to all four of these justices and found out how everything runs. I've met every staff member of the court, from briefing attorneys to clerks
Okay.
to secretaries, the
Okay.
the clerk of the Court of Appeals.
Okay.
I've met all these people, talked to them in detail. But that representative takes the budget request, and the legislature approves, X number of dollars, and that's to cover all 14 Court of Appeals.
Okay.
And so what they do is they divide that number by 80,
Okay.
and then,
That
the
figures
first
out.
district Court of Appeals in Houston may have 8 judges. That's that number times 8.
Okay. Got it.
Beaumont's
It's all
got 4
mathematical.
justices. It's that number
4
times 4. So that's really set in stone.
Okay.
The state, creates the budget. The state handles all the computer software equipment for the court. Now, if they're squabbling among staff or something, the Chief Justice would step up and,
Okay.
act as mediator, referee, and get it solved. But these people have been over there for a long, long time. It's a well-oiled machine. It's
Okay.
running very well.
Okay.
Very
Good.
efficient right now.
That's great. We talked a little bit about this before, but why is the 9th District Court of Appeals that you're running for the Chief Justice seat in important to Montgomery County?
Very good question, and most people don't really think about, know about, or really care about courts of appeals. We've got a contested runoff right now for the 457th District Court, a brand new district court here in Montgomery County that, is going to serve the citizens of Montgomery County, and everybody's interested in that particular race. But the 9th District Court of Appeals is an appellate court that sits in Beaumont, Texas.
Right.
Why
Everybody
Mon-
should be interested in
Why
this.
should Montgomery
This is
County
more
care
important.
about that? And they really don't.
And that's what we're here for today, because they don't understand that is a very important court.
Yeah.
So basically, if it's criminal or if it's civil, and you want to make sure that the trial court came up with the right judgment. It's fair, just, equitable. The law was correctly followed. The rules were correctly followed. The attorneys acted appropriately. The parties acted appropriately. The judge acted appropriately. That's what the Court of Appeals decides when they review all this record and they have the trial transcript of everything. And if it was a fair and just decision, they uphold the judgment. If there was error committed, and the case needs to be remanded or reversed and remanded back to the trial court for a new trial, they can do that. And any party that isn't happy about the Court of Appeals decision has two options. If it's criminal, they appeal to the Court of Criminal Appeals, which is the Supreme Court of Criminal Cases. If it's civil, they appeal to the Texas Supreme Court. But both of those courts get to pick and choose what they want to hear.
Right.
And it's a small percentage.
That's so true.
At times it's under 5% of the appealed cases they decide to appeal. So that means that the Court of Appeals, the majority of the time is the final court.
That's why it is so critical,
decision.
right? It is most important.
Here's another reason why I think it's important to the citizens, the voters of Montgomery County. In the last 7 years, I've tried a lot of cases in Harris County and in Bexar County, San Antonio. And I've tried cases all over the state of Texas, but that's been a lot of my trials. And how do I put this politely? We don't have any more Republican conservative judges in these big metropolitan counties. We've got very liberal Democratic judges.
And very new liberal Democratic judges that haven't practiced a lot of law.
There's some that were elected in 2018 that started January 2019.
Very scary.
That have never tried a case, which is scary. So I tell people that we're in a crisis and everybody doesn't know how bad the crisis is yet.
Really?
But worse than that, what I've been exposed to in predominantly Houston and San Antonio are judges that blatantly refuse to follow and enforce our laws.
I know.
They
It's
are
true.
making decisions based upon their personal opinion.
I know.
They're basing decisions based on what the social norms are nowadays. What they think, people want.
What their
even
constituents would
even
want.
if the people are in the minority. And and I've had judges that have blatantly refused to follow Court of Appeals decisions. But more
Really?
importantly, I've had judges that have blatantly refused to follow Texas Supreme Court
Law.
cases.
Well, what do you do in
What
a
do you do?
situation
I mean, I'm running
like
into that all the time.
Yeah.
Well, and there were 5 of candidates for this bench in the primary, all from Montgomery County. So we were vetted by a bunch of different groups, questionnaires, interviews, everything. And I was asked, well, what are you telling us? You're not getting a fair trial? And I said, well, I don't get a fair trial from the judges. I mean, when you point out a Supreme Court case that is exactly on point, that
Right.
exactly tells them what the law is and exactly what they are supposed to do.
And it may
they
have a
were-
little bit too much political flavor, then it's going to go the wrong way, depending on who.
And
the
they
judge is.
refuse to follow it, and they basically are trying to create new law from the bench. It's called legislating from the bench.
Yes, it is.
And it is rampant in these big metropolitan judges. And so I've been exposed to that, and I tell them, I said, I'm not going to get a fair trial from the judge, but thank God for the jury system. Because that jury that's picked and seated in that jury box, 9 times out of 10, and that may be, it may be 95%, they get it right.
Yeah, but what happens when the judge doesn't, whether at Paris or wherever, doesn't allow you to bring in your evidence to try your case, and so you're still not getting a fair trial because the jury doesn't get to hear all the evidence
You
Appeal?
do the best you can.
to show the error, right?
But let me say this: the juries, they put a lot of thought and a lot of heart into this process and in their decision, and the juries can read between the lines. They can see when one attorney is taking advantage of the system, when one attorney is being favored by the judge over the other attorney.
That's true.
They can tell.
And they
when
don't
a-
like it.
No, and they can tell even when a judge is politely doing it, when a judge is not giving a side, an attorney, a fair trial.
Right.
Juries pick up on
The
that.
problem is if they can't get to that critical piece of evidence to deliberate on, you can't get it. But you have the Court of Appeals.
Right.
As long as you've got your errors.
The great news is that verdict is that jury verdict's what gives me a fair trial. And 9 times out of 10, the judge pretty much has to follow the jury verdict. and enter a judgment to that effect. So I win the vast majority of my cases. John Causey and I are extremely successful in trial. And we get it because the judge has to follow the jury verdict. So I end up getting a fair trial from the jury, not from the judge. Now, again, we're talking about the big metropolitan areas. Like
Oh, no, I
Houston,
totally agree.
Central.
I always go
I'm
to
not
jury.
talking about Montgomery
I
County.
always go with the
great,
jury.
we got great judges here in Montgomery County. But when you go to these big metropolitan
Great
areas,
judges that follow the law.
But if you have a politically connected group of people that you're suing, and I can only think of a handful of cases right now that are in the paper quite a bit, don't you think the judges, even our Montgomery County judges, are swayed by that?
you worry about that. The upper courts give them the benefit of the doubt that the judges knows what the law is, even if it's an area the judge isn't familiar with, and the judge applies the law according to the facts, and the judge made a right decision.
That leads to my next question, though. Montgomery County has got fair judges, but what about the other counties in the Ninth, or the Beaumont Court of Appeals? What do you know about them?
Well, they're very, very conservative, and when you're very conservative, you're properly interpreting the laws, you're following the laws, and you're enforcing the laws.
Letter, right?
Whether you agree with it or not. I mean, it's not our job to want to sway the law or change the law based on how we feel, because there's a lot of cases that I don't agree with what they stand for, but my job is to follow and enforce the law, not legislate from the bench.
That's right.
And that's why I'm running. When I first started my original push card, I set all this out that I'm talking about, and that's what's caused me to run for this position.
Really?
Is that we need to get judges that are conservative, that are not going to legislate from the bench,
Right.
but are going to follow and enforce the law.
Absolutely.
That's
Well, you're
so-
way ahead of the game because
so
you are going to win,
important.
and the polls are all in your favor, and you've got this amazing footprint. I mean, your name is everywhere.
Well, let me ask you this. So, are you telling our listeners that as Chief Justice for the Ninth District Court of Appeals, you will be faithful to review the appeals that are before you and ensure that the trial court judges at the lower level than the Court of Appeals, the trial court judges followed the law and properly applied, what was applicable? You're going to be really steadfast about doing that.
That's what the Court of Appeal judges are supposed to do.
But
that would
that
be
And that's
great.
what I'm. That's
that
what
would
I'm.
be great.
That's what I'm guaranteeing. My old push card basically says.
Is that your push card?
Well, this is a newer one.
He likes the old one.
But my old one said, basically the reason I want to be your Chief Justice of the Ninth District Court of Appeals is that I will follow and enforce the law. I will not legislate from the bench.
Yeah.
Now, but that leads to the next question. Now, you're just human, so you only have so much time in the day. So you have to rely upon your staff, I would think, to vet through and outline the cases. So do you get to pick your own staff, or the ones that are there, or how does that work?
Good question.
The ones that are there have been there for a long time, and they know what they're doing,
Okay.
and they have their game down.
Okay.
If they weren't doing their job properly, they wouldn't still be there.
Okay.
So I'm not intending to go in and
Okay.
and
Well, not to change it
staff.
out. I'm just saying that to keep the same staff, because they're really good staff.
Yeah.
I love that. Whenever I call the Ninth Court of Appeals, they answer right away. They're very polite. If I've got, they are there. They are on it. I love this court. But as far as making sure, from your own standpoint, to make sure you have some control to honor what you're saying, do you look at do you get to choose the person that will work under you, or is there a certain plan that you have in their day that these are the things that we're going to do to make sure that we don't make mistakes, or how does that work?
Each justice has their own briefing attorneys.
Okay.
So I'm going to basically inherit Steve McKeithen's briefing
Okay.
attorneys.
Okay.
And I'm hoping nobody leaves.
Okay.
Because I'm going to be the new kid.
How
on
many
the-
briefing attorneys are there?
They're typically two
Okay.
per justice.
Okay.
And so their job is to do a lot of the initial research and writing. And as you're aware, whoever files the appeal is called the appellant, and their attorneys set forth all the case law, all the argument and everything. That's the appellant's brief. The person that didn't file the appeal is the appellee, and their attorney does an appellee's brief in response with all the case law. So there's something to start with. Plus, the court's got a history,
Right.
a bank of decisions, and you know what.
And then seeing this is their daily routine. And I clerked for the First Court of Appeals while I was in law school. And so I kind of got to see how they ran, but I don't know how the Ninth Court runs.
Right.
And it was kind of the same. We had a bunch of clerks, and it came from the bottom up, and it bubbled up to the top.
Right.
And there was all these conferences, but I wasn't sure if the Ninth Court did the same thing.
So you have a roadmap basically with the appellant's brief and the case law, the appellee's brief and the case law. But you being practicing attorneys, it always amazes me when I go into a hearing, whether I'm filing a motion or responding to a motion, and I'm looking at the other party's case law that they're citing. I always have a tendency to go read the case.
I do too.
Because for some strange reason,
They lie.
what the case says and what
Does it supported by their citations, right?
Yes. Sometimes it's 180-degree opposite
It
of what
is,
they
I
put in their
know.
motion or their response.
I use that
That's
to my
just
favor.
dishonest.
Well, you
though.
take it and then
Isn't
you
that
twist-
lying
you-
to the court?
It is lying to the
Yes.
court, and you lose a lot of credibility when you do that.
Well, I mean, I always hear that people lose credibility, supposedly, but I mean, they do.
But
it
when
all
you're
the time.
lying and it says
Or-
exact
or just
opposite, it
make
helps
up-
you if your judge is good
That's a
Yes.
bunny
and
trail.
says.
So
you know,
I'm not going to be just relying upon the attorneys and their
Right,
briefs,
right.
or my briefing attorneys, and you're communicating with your briefing attorneys all the time. And plus, if you're the author of the opinion, you're communicating with the other two justices on the case too. So there's three justices
Right.
that are making sure all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed.
Plus, in the Ninth Court of Appeals,
That's
at least
good.
when I write, because it has to be jurisdictional, I'm using those same opinions to cite, and so they
Sure.
kind of know the cases. You can't really
Sure.
lie to the very people
Correct.
you're trying to argue. I mean, that's like a bad
Well,
third
you
grader.
wouldn't. You wouldn't.
Well, because you lose credibility, and I wouldn't
Right.
want to do that anyway. Because
Sure.
And to do this job, you got to love research and writing.
Yeah.
And I mean, Reuben Hope started me off doing all the research and writing, whether it's motions, responses, appeals, from the get-go. So I've been doing this for 32 years.
And you
Yeah.
enjoy reading. Okay, then
yeah.
that's perfect.
Yeah.
But you said you're a trial lawyer. It's very different. Writing briefs and being a trial lawyer.
Well, sometimes trial attorneys are very brief.
They
and-
should be.
And to the point, and sometimes there's perfectionists that are very, very picky.
Yes.
And which one are you?
I'm that picky perfectionist.
Really? Oh my
Yes.
gosh! Well, that's where we are no longer alike, because although I know I shouldn't be that picky perfectionist, I always go. I try to focus on being brief, and I know I'm not, and I say
I
that.
think you have a lot of perfectionist in you, Tony.
Yeah, because I usually I try not to get to that word limit. I try to half it, but you're right. But we should. I'm trying to go toward being brief.
I want to ask you this. We have about, 10 more minutes? We have about 10 more minutes. Why are you, so this is a runoff election, right?
Right.
So I just want to briefly throw this out here, no bunny trails. In the original election, you were up against 4 other people?
Correct.
Counting yourself.
Correct.
And you got 37.25% of the vote?
30.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, 37.25% of the vote with 5 candidates, which
With
is massive.
5
It is
candidates.
massive.
Yeah.
It's huge.
And-
I don't know. Well, let me just explain to our viewers. The next person under you got what percent of the vote?
25. Basically, he was about 8,000 votes less than what I got.
8,000 less than what you
Yeah.
got. And it's required that to get the position of Chief Justice, you have to have 50% of
Yeah,
the vote.
You got to just bust that 50.00 something.
Well, I mean,
to
it
get
makes sense if you're running against just one
Right,
other person,
right.
but if you're running against 5 people, that's
Yeah.
I don't know how
Nearly
you
5
do that.
candidates, it's just
You did pretty
guaranteed
good
to be in
though.
the
You
runoff.
did. You got
Yeah.
a lot of votes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
And that's
won
why
overall in the
we
10
feel
counties.
sure that you're.
Yeah, I
you
won
won
overall
overall.
in the 10 counties, but really majorly won in Montgomery County. So if I can get my voters to come back out and vote in this runoff election, I'll do
are you
fine.
campaigning in the other counties?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I didn't do as good in the other counties because I was working full-time and I didn't campaign.
Sure.
in
Oh.
basically any of them.
Yeah, but your billboards are everywhere.
I've got signs everywhere.
Yeah, you sure do. Well, so tell our listeners why. So now you're in a runoff against Jay Wright.
Correct.
And it's a Scott Goleman against Jay Wright.
Correct.
For Chief Justice, the seat of Chief Justice. Why are you more experienced than Jay Wright, your opponent?
Well, before I answer
Or a better
the final
candidate, 'cause I think
answer to
it's-
that, a better candidate. Let me approach it this way. One of our other race, one of the attorney's themes is integrity matters, and since the runoff, since the primary, and basically we didn't do anything for the first 2 months, like everybody with the stay at home coronavirus. So we've all just started here basically a month or so ago, and
Yeah, what
trying
a
to
nightmare.
jumpstart our campaign. But in the runoff, what's being set out on the campaign trail, or what's being put in my opponent's mailers, I don't want the voting public to be misled.
Okay.
For instance, my opponent is trying to convince everybody that the majority of the appeals on the civil side are from bench trials and not jury trials. He's also telling everybody that the majority of the civil appeals are family law cases instead of other general civil cases.
Why does that matter?
Well, because he doesn't have the experience of the civil jury trials.
Okay, so it's just it's incorrect.
It's incorrect, and anybody that we're attorneys, trial attorneys.
I know that's
we know
not true.
this
Yeah,
stuff.
it's not true. It's true.
And so you know that the bulk, and he's telling people the majority of family law cases are tried to jury
But to what
and not bench
benefit?
trial.
I don't understand why that's a benefit.
Because
Tony,
he
did
doesn't.
you hear
Because
what
he
he
doesn't
just-
have the civil trial
Oh,
experience.
okay.
So
it's just misinformation
It's
because he
misinformation
doesn't know.
because the vast majority of any family law trial is a bench trial.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
a jury doesn't get to decide.
Yeah, you get laughed at.
Property division.
You
or
get
child-
laughed at?
Well, if you ask for a jury in most family courts,
Oh,
then
yeah,
the judge
you
and
get
everyone else
laughed
is
at.
like rolling their eyes. They're like, seriously,
'Cause
because
to
most of the things that you're going after cannot be determined by a jury.
Yeah, and it'd be a popularity contest,
Right.
whichever side party the jury likes. So most of the family law cases are bench trials. And it doesn't matter if it's family law or any other case that's a bench trial, because he's telling them, well, most of the appeals are bench trials. That's garbage. Because it's actually a higher standard. It's a higher burden to set aside a judgment from a judge on a bench trial. Because you got to show that the judge abused his or her discretion.
Right.
It is more difficult. Right?
So it's a lot more difficult. So the truth of the matter is the majority of the cases that are appealed are from civil jury trials.
Okay.
And when you get right down to it, I've got over 300 civil jury trials in my 32 years as a civil trial attorney, and Jay Wright only has 55.
Wow, it's a big difference.
And that can be verified by going to the Republican Voters of Texas PAC website, because we all had to fill out questionnaires, and that's the exact number of civil jury trials that Jay Wright said he'd done.
Now, I thought
was
he did
55.
mostly criminal, though. Now, I thought almost all criminals, at least my clients, all want to appeal. I don't, because they're going to lose. But if they actually went to trial, you must have thought that there was, some reasonable doubt, and they get the automatic appeal, especially if it's a higher level case. So, what about criminal? You talked about civil.
I've done over 50 appeals. Jay's done, I think, 117 appeals. And,
Okay.
and the vast majority of Jay's appeals are criminal cases.
Okay.
Where, the state has, convicted the felon, and they've got to, they're going to be incarcerated, and they hired Jay to handle their defense appeals. And that's the majority of his appeals. The problem is when you research those appeals and you go look at it, you're going to be hard-pressed to find one case. And I haven't found one case that Jay Wright has won on appeal of a criminal case.
So he's not really a brief writer, or there just may
I
be
do
some.
not- I
We
do
don't know
not
why.
know. I do not know. But he's touting, I've got all, 117 appeals, but over 70 appeals are criminal cases that he's never won on appeal. So you can't say that you're the most experienced or the best qualified when you're not winning any of your appeals.
Yeah, that tells me why he wants to be in that position, because he can't win them. Anyway, just making an
or
assessment
maybe wanting
here.
to change the law on
Yeah.
the criminal convictions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a problem. So the other thing is, and I've been honest with my voters, and everywhere I've campaigned, I've never tried a criminal case. Never have. And he goes, well, I've got all this criminal trial experience. That's why I'm the most qualified. And you got to have criminal trial experience to be qualified to serve as a justice on a court of appeals, and that's
No,
garbage.
that's just not true, right?
Because out of our 4 justices that have been there, Leanne Johnson's in her second term, so she's already finished 6 years. And Steve's finishing up 3 terms, 18 years. Leanne Johnson, Charles Krager, and Hollis Horton never tried a criminal case in their life.
Really?
Never
Wow.
handled a criminal appeal.
Well, that's not really relevant anyway, because
Well,
the truth of the matter, the law, I mean, that is relevant to the judges. It's not relevant relative to criminal and civil experience, because the law is the law, and it's going to be the same appeal. So,
We're all intelligent. We all can
Right.
read. We can all figure
Right.
it out.
Right.
And we've got hundreds, if not thousands, of prior case law precedent that you follow. Our Chief Justice tried 10 to 15 misdemeanor cases in county court at law.
oh, really?
When he was the county attorney.
Really?
He's never tried a felony criminal case in his life. So you don't have to
Right.
have criminal trial experience to be a justice on
You have to have integrity. You have to be fair. You have to be willing to read all the facts. But integrity, I think, is the most important characteristic. You've got to have that.
Oh, yeah. I agree with that 100%.
Perseverance and integrity.
Okay, well, we've just got a few minutes left here, so I'm really going to take, just start questioning you. Who has endorsed you?
Oh, gosh. I don't know if you can see this or not.
Let's
So
see if
that's
we can-
something else. I mean, Jay has got
let's
endorsed.
see, is this your?
Jay's got endorsed
Yeah.
by
There.
Is that right?
Texas Right to Life.
Oh, okay.
I've got endorsed by Texas Alliance for Life. It's the same thing. It's pro-life.
Okay.
That's the only thing that you see on Jay's campaign stuff is Texas Right to Life. I've got 7 endorsements.
Yeah.
Republican Voters of Texas PAC, made up of women from the 7 Republican women groups in Montgomery County.
Really?
Texas Civil Justice League, mom and pop businesses all up to major corporations across the state of Texas that have researched and endorsed conservative candidates. Texas Homeschool Coalition, that's statewide. I've got endorsed from them. Texas Patriot PAC, which is the Woodlands Tea Party group.
Oh, really?
Civil Lawyers for Good Judges PAC, that's Montgomery County Civil Attorneys PAC that's endorsed me. Texans for Lawsuit Reform, again, conservative candidates.
And there's a lot more that are endorsing you, because when I was reading the paper, all the endorsements, when you've gone to these 2 different ones that's between you and Mr. Wright, I'm seeing a ton of endorsements. And it's like, wow. I mean, and I was surprised that there was that big of a change,
So
a
basically,
difference.
don't just take my word for it, why I'm more qualified than my opponent.
Right.
Research these PACs, because we've done questionnaires, we've done interviews.
I just didn't understand why you had so many more endorsements. What did you do differently? Did they just sua sponte have endorsed you? And
No, I mean, we've been vetted
Okay.
and they've made their decision.
right, they
Okay.
vetted though. You didn't go after
Yes.
them. They came to you, and
Oh,
after
yeah.
they heard the facts, they said, "We're going to
Yes.
endorse." Okay,
Yeah.
wow.
So don't just take my word that I'm
Right.
most qualified. Go to these 7 PACs.
That have already
research
vetted
them,
you.
And most of them have paragraphs of why they endorse me.
Okay.
They do. I read them.
Well, how can our voters find out more about you? You have a website, don't you?
Golemanforjudge.com.
Golemanforjudge.com.
Golemon for judge.com.
M-O-N.
Yes.
Golemon.
Correct.
Golemanforjudge.com.
And
Okay.
Goleman2020 @gmail.com. I've given everybody, it's on all my stuff, my cell number, 936-520-2685.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So-
You're like, what do you call that when you come out with your
Save.
information?
Yeah.
That's right. So, I mean, they can call me, they can text me, they can email me, they can go to my website, it's all there.
Wow. Well, we really appreciate you being on the show. Is it, how much longer do we have here? Like 30 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we really appreciate you having you on our show.
Thank you for having me.
We wish you the best in your election. In this election, go out and vote. Go out and vote tonight. You can vote.
And you're first on the ballot?
I think I'm number 2 on the ballot.
Oh,
in
okay. Well,
Montgomery County.
Goleman, like
It's only
gold,
one
but
or
it's
two.
gold with not the D with the E. Okay.
We wish you all the best.
Thank you very
We'll follow
much.
your election, and hopefully our listeners will be motivated to get out there and go vote. These are important issues. We need judges that apply the law.
We
the
need people to
Texas
understand that the
law.
Ninth Court of Appeals is really, really important to people in Montgomery County. They need to get out and vote. It's important.
Right. That's right. Listen to Tony. We thank you for listening. We want to remind you.
Serve God by serving others.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Have a great week, guys.
Thank
Bye
you
bye.
very much.
Today's show was recorded and broadcasted live on irlonestar.com, Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and all rights and ownership are reserved to Lone Star Community Radio. For more information regarding this program and Lone Star Community Radio, visit us online at irlonestar.com. Lone Star Community Radio is Montgomery County's community radio station, serving the community with local programming on TV, radio, and online. If you enjoyed today's program, please support us by sponsorship or starting your own show. Contact us today by phone or text at 936-666-1084 or email the station at lscrstudios@gmail.com.